Check 1, 2, check, check. Check 1, 2. Where you guys started, I've actually got.
We can sit there with that.
Check 1, 2, check, check. Check 1, 2, check, check.
Mic check, 1, 2, 3. Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Mic check, 1, 2, 3.
Check 1, 2, check, check. Test of mic 7.
All right. Do I have a motion to return to open session? Ms. Bond and Ms. Purcell? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Yes. Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton? Yes. Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
6 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to certify closed session that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
So moved. Second.
Dr. Gitchery and Dr. Roundtree. Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Yes. Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton? Yes. Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
6 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to expel student A?
So moved.
Dr. Roundtree and Ms. Parton, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Yes. Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton? Yes. Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
6 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion for no further discipline for student B?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Roundtree and Ms. Purcell, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Yes. Dr. Gitchery?
Abstain.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 abstain.
Motion carries. Our next agenda item is public address. We welcome the opportunity to hear from students, parents, employees, and community members about education matters in this community. As a reminder, the board sets aside 30 minutes to start our public address. We have the option to extend in 30-minute increments, which Ms. Osborne will remind us of. If there are additional speakers after 90 minutes, the board will continue with their business meeting and hold one additional 30-minute session at the end of the business meeting. Clock continues through applause and disruptions. The more disruptions there are, the fewer speakers we get to address the board. I will call each speaker up by name in the order that they signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The board does not respond to speakers during public address. The screens will show when speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when time is up. Please state your name and the area of the county you live in. The first speaker tonight is Glenn Chilcote.
Good evening. My name is Glenn Chilcote, and I live in Blacksburg. First off, I want to say thank you to the Board of Supervisors for passing the 1 cent tax increase that will make a lot of the decisions that you have to make coming up very soon a little bit easier. So I'm very thankful for them to, especially to allocate that money to public schools. Next, I would like to then say that I really hope that you take into consideration the original proposed budget that Dr. Bregan presented you, because from what I've seen, I think most items in the original budget presentation will be able to be accomplished now with this additional revenue. Specifically, all of the positions and the salary scale adjustments, the compression. And I want to talk briefly about the compression right now. Of course, it's good for recruitment and retention. And a lot of people say that, we're always competing with Northern Virginia or Northern Virginia adjacent. And we truly are. I've had, in my almost 17 years, I've probably had definitely over 50 student teachers from Radford or Virginia Tech. And I can count on one hand the number that have stayed in Montgomery County. My very first student teacher, she looked me, dead in the eyes first week and said, "I'm not teaching in Virginia unless I'm teaching in Northern Virginia." And I remember thinking wow, what a horrible thing to say to me who loves this place and cherishes this place. But I mean, she did have a point, and this is her point. She's now working in Prince William County. They have it's a huge school division. I think 11,000 employees. You can check me on that. But if you have a master's degree, year 9, you're making $80,000. Year 9. That's year 35 with a master's degree here in Montgomery County. And I mean, really year 36, because we start on year 0. They don't. They start on 1 is 1 there. So this compression, whether it's the 15 or the 20, hopefully the 15, because I think that's the most economically smart. But the compression, we're not competing with Northern Virginia. We can't. But we can compete with everyone else. And that's really important. Everyone else. You're really going to get the best and brightest in this area and beyond if you consider this. If you compare it just to currently with the scale with a 3% raise, it's not that much additional funds in the grand scheme of things. So I really hope you take that into consideration. All of the positions in the budget, I think, are very smart. And lastly, I just want to say that I think every building deserves a dedicated music teacher, a dedicated PE teacher, a dedicated STEM teacher, a dedicated art teacher, and a dedicated librarian. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chilcote. Next up is Bob Beard.
Good evening, Bob Beard. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight from Christiansburg. Question of the night is how do we keep $5 million in funding? And besides eliminating the Department of Equity, we need to raise standards towards excellence by teaching, self-reliance, critical thinking, reading and writing, arithmetic and science, and so things I've been talking about. Dr. Gittrey and Penny Franklin and Dr. Roundtree construed that DEI or equity isn't racial, yet MCPS is sending educators to white privilege conferences, okay? So MCPS' mission is to treat teachers and students fairly, while when and how are teachers or students treated unfairly. The Privilege Institute is a network of diverse and multiple disciplinary people driven to advance learning about diversity, power, privilege, supremacy, and anti-racist leadership. We inform and support challenge people committed to this action and accountability. Dr. Eddie Moore, Jr., and like-minded leaders launched the WPC in 1999 to examine white supremacy, white privilege, and other forms of oppression. Through the challenging workshops, engaging speakers, and range of educational programs they created to connect resources, equities, issues of equity, privilege, power, supremacy, and white anti-racist leadership. Some of the programs they have are 21-day race equity habit building challenge, an anti-racist certificate. The White Privilege Conference for the travel, training materials, and books, we spent over $33,000. I am requesting that MCPS make a White Privilege Conference presentation to all of us. The department salaries and benefits is over $311,000. And, we always talk about, in-school and out-of-school suspensions, but, most people don't realize that there's such thing as called equity instances. And so I got a quote from my FOIA that I put together. Okay, the Office of Equity and Diversity does not have incidents. The office proactivity ensures that our policies, practices, and procedures do not hinder our students or employees from achieving their maximum potential while learning or working in MCPS. Barriers may include, but not limited to, access to fair and equitable discipline practices, access to cultural proficiency, access to professional development for staff, and access to programs. The point being is, an equity incident refers to a situation that hinders students or employees from reaching their maximum potential while learning or working in MCPS. MCPS has a process of filing these incidents. In 2021, we have 42. 22, we had 53. In 23, we had 107. In 24, we had 68. And so far this year, we've had 80. But yet we have close to 4,000 in-school and out-of-school suspensions, and we're spending all this money on equity, and yet we're not spending that money on in-school suspension, truancy, and those other issues. So,
Thank you, Mr. Beard. Your time is up. Seeing no one else signed up, public address is closed. Okay, now we're into our business portion of our meeting. Our first agenda item, the U.S. Department of Education sent letters to state commissioners overseeing K-12 SCAs, requiring them to certify their compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act and the responsibilities outlined in Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard to continue receiving federal financial assistance. Do I have a motion to approve certification of the Title VI Used Certification Letter, U.S. Department of Education, certification letter as provided?
Second.
Ms. Pardon and Ms. Purcell. Any discussion?
I guess I'll say something. So I've been following this as closely as I can. I know that there's a lot of division in the country over this, that about the same number of states have declined to certify as have opted to certify. I contacted the VDOE to get clarification on some of the language that's used in the certification, particularly with regard to certain DEI practices, and I basically did not get any additional information. I was told to look at the FAQ, and I think it's interesting that the certification itself does not bind itself to that definition of DEI and what's prohibited and not prohibited. And so I know that there's a fear, and this has been perpetuated in part in the press, that the federal government is just going to step in and take away our funding. And I decided to actually look at the law in Title VI and how enforcement is treated. And it's actually quite difficult to remove funds from a school division for noncompliance. There has to be an investigation, and even after that investigation, if there's some finding that there was a violation, the first step is informal means in order to bring that division into compliance. And if that doesn't work, there are additional steps. So one of the concerns that I have with the certification is that it adds this language about certain DEI practices. If it were just about Title VI, no problem, we certify Title VI. But it wraps in language about DEI in here, and my concern is that there's an additional risk if we sign, because if it's found that we have DEI programs or practices that the Department of Education finds in noncompliance, then it doesn't necessarily matter if we're in noncompliance with Title VI, but we've made a false claim in the certification. So I was hoping that we would have an answer from the court case in New Hampshire before having to make this decision. But aside from that, I'm deeply troubled because I know that there are claims about this being a Marxist doctrine, DEI. I find that to be, there couldn't be anything further from the truth. I'm going on longer than I normally do, but I feel strongly about this, and I'll stop in a moment. It is rooted in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, following on Brown versus Board of Education. It goes back to the 14th Amendment and equal protection and the Equal Protection Clause. This is not some foreign doctrine. This is as American as you can get. And I am not going to turn my back on this commitment to these principles that are central to our mission to encourage diversity, inclusion, and equity. And that very term that some people find so objectionable, equity, is embedded in Title VI. It's embedded in the Civil Rights Act. When we certify Title I, I was just looking at the language, there are multiple places it refers to equity. So I might be the minority here, but I am not in favor of signing this document. If we want to send some assurance that we were going to comply with Title VI, as we always do, I'm fine with that. But I have great concerns about this certification. Can I just ask one question afterward? But I want other people to speak.
Thank you, Dr. Guthrie. We'll go around. Ms. Pardon? Ms. Bond? Dr. Boundtree?
Yeah, so it was brought up again tonight, and Dr. Bregan did an excellent job of explaining what the white privilege conference was last night at the Board of Supervisors meeting. Can you just reiterate what that program is? And it does have an unfortunate title, but it is a program. I'll let you go ahead and describe it. Sorry.
Sure. My understanding of the White Privilege Conference, and I actually did attend a number of years ago when I worked for a university in New Jersey, it's to have a conference and to provide safe spaces where people could have dialogue and discussions about race, about biases, and about different things that may impact all of us, whether knowingly or not knowingly. And the goal of it is to have those conversations and discussions so that perhaps we bring that back to whether we're working in higher ed or working in K-12, and understanding that all of us, irrespective of our background and upbringing, have biases. And to bring that to the forefront of awareness, it may help us better serve all our kids and all our students to make sure we do everything for all of our children to have equal access to all the programs and opportunities we provide. That's my understanding, and that's been my experience.
Thank you. And then this letter that they're wanting us to sign, given the text of Title VI and the assurances you've already given and violation of Title VI, including the use of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs to advantage one's race over another, do we use DEI, or Division, Equity, and Inclusion, in order to advantage one race over another in this district?
We do not.
Thank you.
Ms. Purcell?
If the ongoing court battles and pushback from other states shows us anything, it reinforces the point that this document has little to no legal authority. It's written as political messaging, and poorly at that. We have been assured by our board attorney that we don't do anything illegal. We are in compliance. I do not want infrastructure and programs threatened by federal actions. I do not want our students to lose a single cent from government withholding funding or from costly, time-consuming lawsuits. I have some other information that I wrote down about the amount of funding that we get, and I will save you all. I believe that to not sign puts a target on our back. Last night, the Board of Supervisors voted to increase the tax rate, of which we get a portion, and it's our job as stewards of public education in this county to be responsible with all the funds that we get. I am not jeopardizing kids' resources, and I think it's important to be in compliance with this certification letter.
Great, thank you. I'll add a few comments as well, and then go back around if others have comments. But definitely appreciate the perspectives that have been shared. I agree with the sentiments from most of the board here. I mean, I certainly understand the concerns. I think that my belief is that if we certify like so many other counties in the state do, and if somehow a switcherooski happens in there and we thought we're signing one thing and then they actually pull the rug, all of the counties are all in the same boat, right? We're all fighting that together. I think if we go off on our own in this, we're going to be on our own. I think it's naive to believe that this is the only thing that's going to come down the road. I mean, based on the trend of what's happening elsewhere in the country, there may be other things coming, and I feel like we need to take them all on as they come to us. But this isn't the battle I think we need to fight. I unfortunately believe there will be other battles that we'll have to fight, and I trust this board will work through those together with the right amount of attention and seriousness. So, Dr. Guthrie?
Yeah, I appreciate that, those sentiments. I just want to kind of bring home the possible risk here for false claims. So we're going to talk about the budget. We're going to talk about a dual language program, which some people could call a DEI program. So is that program going to be available for all students in MCPS if we pass it?
Is that a question or is it rhetorical?
Yeah, that was a question.
The goal right now is to offer that program at Price's Fork Elementary School. And if Price's Fork Elementary School doesn't have enough students in their school that would fill the 2 classrooms. It would be open to every child in Montgomery County Public Schools.
Okay. And why was that school chosen as the site? And this is public information. I mean, this was presented to us.
There's a variety of reasons. You know, one is it's the openness of the administration in the school to be accepting of such a program. It has a population of one of the highest elementary schools with our multiple language learner population, many of which happen to be Spanish. So we could serve two needs there and have a biliteracy program for our students that speak a foreign language, but also give our English language only students an opportunity to learn a foreign language.
So I know that there are people who are not happy with this program, okay? By virtue of the fact that it's next year, if we were to pass it, it's not going to be available to all students, and we chose that school because it has a certain percentage, a higher percentage of Spanish-speaking students. I bring that to your attention because somebody could see that and say, that's a DEI program. It's not available to all students when you're rolling it out, and you've selected a particular population for that program, and that could put us at odds with our certification, potentially. So I see there's as much of a risk in signing as not signing. And the question is, do you think we should have that dual language program?
Board, any other comments?
Yeah, so Title VI protects on the basis of race, color, national origin. Nowhere does it say language spoken. So Spanish is not a race. The Spanish language is neither a race, ethnicity, or national origin or color. Additionally, this document as a whole is quite redundant with documents that we sign on a regular basis when we receive grants. The DEI portion of it currently, as written, has little teeth for signing it and a lot of potential for not signing it. Now, when the government comes for civil rights of our students, our staff, or our community, I will be fighting, but this isn't the fight.
Any other comments, board? Oh, okay.
So I'm going to be voting yes for the executive order. I do not want to see any money taken from our students or our schools. The fact that we have to continually ask the Board of Supervisors for additional money above and beyond what they already have budgeted for us should tell us that we can't afford to lose any money. And when we have an executive order, federal funds, we have to be in compliance with what the federal government is telling us to do. So I don't want to take that risk, and I wasn't going to take that risk, and that's why I will be voting yes, along with the fact that our legal counsel has told us a couple of times that we need to sign this document. Thank you.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Dr. Getchie?
No.
Ms. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 opposed.
Motion carries. Next, we have the FY 25-26 budget discussion. Angie Bland, our Director of Finance, and Trevor Bennett, our Budget and Finance Manager, will be available for questions.
Good evening. Mr. Bennett and I are here this evening to provide an update on the 2025-26 budget. Yesterday evening, the Board of Supervisors approved a 1-cent tax increase, and the revenue from that increase has been provided to the schools, it's been allocated to the school district. And so this information here provides an overview. So the total proposed additions was just over 8.9 million. We had some increases in state revenue along the budget season, which brings their total to just over 3.3 million. And then with the county revenue, the 2.75 million and the additional 1 cent tax increase, that brings that to 3.9 million. So this evening, we're faced with a budget shortfall of just over 1.6 million. So we have broke down the increases that we've been discussing over the last couple of meetings, and we'll go through all of those. At the end of that presentation, we will have an Excel document that lists all of these items with the costs of each, so we can pull that up and you can, based on your discussions, we can go through that to see where we may land. The first is salary considerations. The first, of course, is the largest piece of this, the 3% salary increase, and that goes in line with what the state has provided for employees. We also have the $150,000 for the minimum wage increase to $16 per hour, as well as the school board salary increase for $22,840. And here's the list of all the additional personnel budget considerations. The salary scales condensing information. So originally we did the condensing to 15 steps, and we split that between the cost to do the teacher salary scale and the classified salary scale separately. And looking at that, we also did another condensing over the weekend to look at moving this to 20 steps. Between the two, it's about a $90,000 decrease from the original 15-step condensing. And the two additional programs for consideration, the dual language program and the school security officers program. And the instructional needs consideration, so we have broke that down, and that will be broken down as well on your Excel spreadsheet. And last but not least, the student free meal consideration. We do have the total cost there for breakfast and lunch, and we also have the breakdown of the breakfast cost and the lunch costs.
Great, thank you for that. So board, we're not voting on anything tonight. However, we do need to provide guidance to the administration in terms of how we want to adjust the proposed budget to account for that budget shortfall. So all conversations are fair game. I would just, what I'll do to help us be clear to the administration, if a recommendation comes forward that we want to consider, we'll discuss it, and I at least want to show of hands. We can make sure that a majority of the board agrees with that potential change, okay? And then compile that together and bring that back as the official proposed budget for us to review at our next meeting. So with that, open the floor. I'm sorry, was there anything else that I kind of jumped in there. Anything else you wanted to present?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a clarification on meals? So I listened to the Board of Supervisors meeting yesterday, and it came up for conversation again. One of the things I think that wasn't clear, and I think might be helpful to clarify, is right now, which schools qualify for quote-unquote free meals? And what level are those schools? Are they elementary, middle school, high school?
Got it.
I do not.
Ms. Knotts, why don't you come on up and let us know?
I have a few of those.
Sorry.
All right.
Almost like you knew we
Yes.
talking about.
I came prepared, yes. Good evening. Currently, we have 6 schools that qualify for the CEP or Community Eligibility Provision, and that's Eastmont Elementary, Eastmont High, Shawsville Middle School, Price's Fork Elementary School, Falling Branch Elementary School, and Montgomery Central.
Great. So one of the things I think has come up maybe in our conversations here with the school board is, let's say there's a student who lives with food insecurity and is receiving these meals in elementary school, and then they go to a middle school or a high school that is not eligible. What happens to those students? Do they still qualify by virtue of the fact that they qualified in an elementary school?
No, sir. So the Community Eligibility Provision remains with the school.
Right.
Not with the student. In a case like that, we would encourage them to be filling out a free and reduced application so we can get them to qualify that way.
Because I don't know if you want to speak to that, but I think that was one of the considerations with providing the meals, because I think, that's one of the big budget issues here.
Yeah, so in any students that are living with food insecurity or that are potentially on the edge of food insecurity, parent loses a job or something like that, of course, those things can be taken up if they qualify for free or reduced lunch. However, there's a period of time where that may not be, they may be living with food insecurity because the paperwork hasn't been filled out or whatnot. Moving from Falling Branch Elementary School to Christiansburg Middle or Price's Fork Elementary School to Blacksburg Middle, all students that aren't qualified for free and reduced lunch lose that benefit when they move to middle school. So that is one concern, that those that are potentially living with food insecurity that are on the cusp of qualifying for those programs would not have those programs going forward.
Thanks for that clarification. Is there a gap? Because there was a percentage, I think 15% who live with food insecurity in the county. The percentage may have been thrown out yesterday. Don't quote me on that. Is there a gap, though, in MCPS between those who qualify? Because what's the threshold for qualification? Do you know what that is?
It's based off of income.
Right.
I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, but certainly something that I can provide.
Is there one of the things I'm wondering, is there a gap so that there are people who live with food insecurity who don't qualify for the program once they leave elementary school, and they may need support once they move to middle or high school? Is there any way to know that, to know what we should do even if we can't provide free meals for breakfast and lunch? Or do we just kind of have to make a decision?
I mean, other than utilizing any avenue we can, getting creative with having a free and reduced application filled out online, that can be done at any point during the year. A spouse can lose their job, they can refill that out, for another chance or opportunity to qualify. I don't know, that's all confidential information as well. I'm not sure, I don't have the answer how we could collect data like that. Because we get it because they fill it out on the application, but that application is absolutely confidential.
I was just wondering if there is a way, let's say the cutoff is for a family of 4, 50,000. I know it's really low. I don't know the exact number. Is there a way to open that up so if it's 75,000, that maybe they don't qualify for that program, but they can still be provided these meals? That's just one way I was thinking about this, but we may be able to still accomplish this by just providing breakfast. I don't know if there's another proposal.
Unfortunately for this year, I think the just breakfast is probably going to be what's going to come out. I would like to do both, but as we discussed, we can figure out if we can find $1.2 million to do both. That's a big ask. But continue pushing on state legislators to provide funding for meals at no cost to our students, and continue pushing on the federal government to expand the free lunch and reduced lunch programs. And next year, we may be able to provide both if those other agencies don't provide it.
Since we started with this one, let's just go around and have whatever conversation we need about the breakfast and lunch. I know other board members probably have other comments as well. Maybe? Anything?
Well, earlier I had spoke out against doing this just because of the waste that we have in our lunch program. And, I've talked to multiple people, lunch aides, and, we've even talked about how we could maybe, I know there's a share table, but if the item is not covered, then that has to be thrown away. And I understand that so many things have to be put on the tray for our students, and, I don't know that I'm a supporter of that, because if they don't like it, they're not going to eat it. And I don't know that we should be making kids take something they don't want to eat. And I understand about trying, but that's not going to really happen, I don't think, so much in today's society. So for me, that's the only reason that I don't support this, is until we can figure out a way to control the waste. And any of us that have eaten with our children, our grandkids at school, you see the trays dumped. And that's just heartbreaking. So, and I've said before, I could support one or the other. And I understand that breakfast is considerably cheaper, but I don't know that you're reaching out to as many students, because I think there's a lot of students that don't want to eat in the mornings and maybe grab something at home, and for those who aren't in a situation that they do have that at home. And then I think it's a very long time till the next morning, and I know you can say the same thing about lunch, but I feel like lunch is a little bit more suitable, but it's also a considerable amount higher. I know with our schedules, the way we have to do things in our schools, sometimes students are eating breakfast. What would be the latest time? 9 o'clock, 9:30, and then some have lunch at 11. And for a high school student, a middle school student, that's not such a big issue. But you get kindergartners in first grade. My concern is they're eating breakfast at 9 o'clock, and at 11 o'clock, they're not eating. So that's part of that, that waste factor for me. If we had the money and could whip it up, I would most definitely start, be for it. I don't want any child to go without a good meal or a food, which I feel like we have. Thank you very much. The food that we've eaten is always delicious. And even if not everyone agrees, I know the work that goes into our cafeterias and the ladies that prepare the food truly, truly do their Solomon best, and I appreciate everything they do. But we don't have an unlimited funding, so I don't know where I stand at this point on that, but those are my concerns. Are we going to stick to this one subject, or do we bring up other subjects? Or are we going to go around the table with just this one?
Yeah, let's try to
Okay.
let's try to tackle them one at a time if we can. I think that
Those
that
are
might be
just
more-
some of my thoughts.
Ms. Parton, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm going to be brief. I think I have stated at several meetings that it would be nice if we had the funds available to be able to make this a reality. I still am going to push our state delegates and our state legislatures to tackle that obstacle, because I don't feel like that's just a problem here. I think it's a lot of counties and cities around our state that are probably having to deal with this too. And the fact that we actually provide a program for them to be able to fill out something to help them financially be able to afford breakfast, lunch, both. And please, if I misspeak, please tell me if I'm wrong and correct me, but I want to say, I believe the reason that our school lunches are the cost they are is because the people who are buying them are being overcompensated to help pay for the students who cannot fully pay for a school lunch. It seems like I heard someone say that we're paying more to kind of help that, and that I don't think, I've been told that any child that goes through the line and says, I don't have money or I don't have food, is going to be turned away. Am I correct?
You're absolutely correct on that. No child comes through the line. They are allowed to charge a reimbursable meal. They can't come and charge a bag of chips, they can't charge anything that we consider à la carte, but they certainly can charge a reimbursable meal.
Which would be considered like a full lunch or a full breakfast?
Correct.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification.
Ms. Purcell?
I echo Dr. Guidry's sentiment about the impossible ask of finding the kids that fall in the gap. And some of this comes from some constituent feedback that we were together listening to parent and teacher concerns. As I understand it, just the income threshold has been static for a very long time, right? So you could make more, but in our expensive world, it's not what the threshold is to qualify for meals. And if there was, besides just kids knowing that they can charge without penalty if they need to, if there was some way to address the gap, that would be really wonderful if we were not to vote for this whole program today. One anecdote that was shared with us was about a student at Auburn High School who had qualified for free meals and then went out and got a job to help her family, and then her income was too high to qualify anymore because a high school student got employed. Like, it's not a great system. I would definitely be, depending on how everything shakes out today, if we can do the free breakfast, that would be wonderful. I think back to our presentation from Sodexo just about when the kids eat breakfast. I don't know if this covers second chance breakfast, or is this just breakfast? Or is second chance breakfast just a middle school and high school thing?
It is currently.
Or a la carte thing?
It's not à la carte, but currently middle school and high school.
That seemed to be a very popular program, so that might be the way to meet this in the middle, but thank you.
I had a couple of comments on this one as well. I guess, I know you've explained this to me at least once, and perhaps twice, but I'm still unclear about where these estimates came from for the cost. Is this essentially saying if every student who is currently paying for breakfast and lunch, if we were to basically pay for them moving forward? So it's not for every student in the county, it's for who is currently participating, right?
So originally, when we started working on this, I took last year's numbers from the first day of school to the last day of school, and then divided that into our serving days to get that amount, and that was the basis of it. I could only hope that rolling out even free breakfast would help to increase the participation so that our numbers may be a little bit, lower in that regard because more kids would be eating. But that was our base, was just starting with history that I knew of and working into that number.
Well, that's exactly my concern, actually, right? Is if we say we're going to fund this, and then folks get excited, oh, free breakfast and lunch. I wasn't buying breakfast and lunch before for any reason, and then the participation goes up. Where's that money coming from, right? Like, we only budgeted however much we budgeted for this.
So we actually took that base amount, and in Sodexo's contract, there is a requirement of increasing participation by 5%. So we increased that by 5%. And then also in reviewing, if we offer free meals, it's going to go up. Maybe not drastically, but there's going to be an increase. So the overall increase that we considered from the base amount that Michelle was able to come up with, we increased that by a total of 15%. So it would be the base from last year plus 15%.
So it's still kind of a guess, though, right? Like, you don't really know.
We can look at our CEP schools right now. Now, all children could eat for free in our CEP schools. We average about 65% participation. So even it's accessible to all, but only 65% are participating.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess in general, thank you for clarifying that, because that's, maybe I'll remember this time. But I think in general, for me tonight, the Board of Supervisors did us a solid last night in increasing by the 1%, but 1.6 million is still a lot of money, right? We're gonna have to take some big swings at things, and, this breakfast and lunch is definitely the biggest increase in the budget that we added. The administration didn't add that, that was us, right? And the lunch portion being the biggest part of that. Again, for me, I have a hard time with this because there are certainly food insecurity in the county, and there are folks who are struggling. There's also a lot of people that aren't struggling in this county. And so for me, for instance, if my kid was eating lunch, I got no business the county paying my kid's lunch. I can pay my kid's lunch, right? Now, he doesn't eat lunch because he doesn't like food, and I'd rather see us work on that a little bit more, right? But, so yeah, I have a hard time supporting this one just because of, I think there's too many questions. It's painting the county with a broad brush, and I think there are other options that we could be pursuing. There are options for families who can't already pursue, and we can advocate in Richmond to hopefully something happens there, so. So I guess, is there a recommendation anybody would like to make on this item before we consider something else? Again, we're not taking motions tonight, but we need to provide some guidance.
Keeping the free breakfast, but removing the free lunch from the proposed budget.
Can I get a show of hands in support of that motion, or that suggestion? Free breakfast, but not free lunch?
I could support it unless we need to pull it for another reason.
Okay.
Does that make sense? If it's a
Yeah.
temporary kind of thing, I can support the free breakfast at, was it 288,000?
Yeah, as soon as we go, we're going to start ticking out some things and getting a new update. Okay.
Right. And this isn't super like, we're not making motions, this isn't Robert's rules, right? It's provide and we need to come back and take a look at that one? Yeah, that's right. So,
I agree with Ms. Bond. This is the first one we're talking about, and we've got
Right.
a lot of other things, and I have some math that I've done, but we have other agreements to shake out.
so tentatively circle that one, but nothing is,
I think as you get a consensus, if it's okay, Board Chair, I'd ask our team to reduce it, so I think he went down to just the breakfast cost. Is that correct? Which brings the deficit down to 690,000 on the bottom there. So if it's okay with you, as we kind of get a consensus, we'll do that, and then obviously nothing is etched in stone.
as long as you can Control Z, right?
Can I ask one question? I know that we have a consensus now. What happens if we do not meet our percentage with Sodexo? Because I've heard comments from parents that they're fundraisers to make up the difference. What happens if we don't, and would this alleviate that problem?
So we have a guarantee as part of that contract. So if Sodexo does not meet the numbers that are required as part of the contract, they actually will write a check to the district for the balance owed, up to a certain amount, up to a certain dollar amount. So if they have a threshold that they have to meet, and if that's not met, then they actually take money from what their management fee would be and write a check to the district to cover that cost.
So there's no hit to us based on the number of students who participated, that purchase meals?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. So again, like we can approach this however y'all want to. I don't want to micromanage the discussion here. I'm sure other folks have plenty of items to discuss. Just want to make sure we can provide clear guidance to the administration here, so. Where else do we want to go?
I was just going to make a comment that the school board salaries increase, I don't want anybody to look at that and think that our salaries would increase to $22,000. That's everybody's together that the increase would make $22,000, just with some of the other heightened salaries in our county. I think there's been a lot of conversation, and I just want to make sure that no one is reading that and perceiving that our salaries would go to that, because that is not what's happening.
so there was a lot of debate about school security officer program and whether or not we should have our own police force here in the district. I think that given our budget constraints, we should lean on the town of Blacksburg to find us security resource officers that are trained police officers that are filling those roles in Blacksburg. All of Christiansburg, all of the county supply us with school resources officers for every one of our schools. Blacksburg needs to do the same. So I would suggest that we cut the school security officer program from the budget.
Any comments on that, board?
Yeah, I would second that, and I'll talk to the mayor about that concern. Security needs to be a priority.
Yes.
I absolutely agree with that. At the same time, we have constraints with our budget, and we have law enforcement here in this community. I know that there's a shortage, and it's difficult to get SROs, but I think we have to make some decisions, and this is a tough decision, and I have no problem going to the mayor and asking for the town of Blacksburg to step up, because we need that security.
So we were given a presentation saying that they don't have SROs. They don't have people qualified to be SROs because it can't be just a regular police officer. There's training involved. There is a time period that's involved that's, I believe, close to a year, and they just aren't having people show any interest in it. So I am not going to ever, while I am sitting on this board, compromise the safety of our schools by eliminating someone that can be in our schools to keep our teachers, our students, and our administration safe. So that is a no-brainer for me. I will absolutely not agree to get rid of that portion of the budget. And after what just happened at Radford Friday, and we just celebrated how many years of April 16th, I cannot imagine that anyone would even think to not have people in our schools who are either retired police officers or some other type of law enforcement or some type of military who not only would be wanting to do it, but would have the training. And we have other agencies that are agreeing to handle all of the cost part of this program, other than the salary. It would be crazy for us to even think about that, but that's just my thoughts on that.
Ms. Vaughn?
I agree. I've often said before, there were lots of retired military people that were looking for work that we could use in our schools for even voluntary programs to have an extra set of eyes, just, whether it be at our entrances or our closing, not to delegate any authority, not to do anything, just to be there on standby or help. But I think there's some other areas that we can adjust in order to keep our students safe.
Ms. Mazzone?
I've had a lot of concerns about this program since day one. I've talked to pretty much everybody on the board about how it was managed with the town of Christiansburg when they weren't or whatever happened with the SROs there and how that was worked out. Dr. Bragan has told me that it's his preference to have SROs and not SSOs. Principals have told me that community connection that a police officer has, where they know the neighborhoods and they know where these kids live, and maybe they've had to go on a call to somebody's house, that's really invaluable information. And it's not something that a school security officer is going to have. They're just going to be in the building during the day. There's some changes coming to the town of Blacksburg. The police chief is retiring. Dr. Bragan is in the interviews for the new chief. Is that okay that I disclose that, Dr. Bragan?
I hope it is.
You know, there will be a new mayor at the end of the year. I know, I agree with you completely, Ms. Parton. It's a unicorn, because you need someone not only who's interested in being a law enforcement officer, but then they also need to have the temperament to be with kids all day. And that's not everyone. I remember being at Coffee with Cops at the Dialogue on Race and talking to some Christiansburg officers, and I asked them, and they said, we like our jobs, and we know that wouldn't be a good fit. But I think there's opportunity to wait and see with the new chief, who might be have a different perspective on recruitment, and also just some new leadership in the town. So while it is very difficult to play roulette because something could happen at any time, I feel like I have enough feedback from my community that if we hold off on this for right now, that's okay. I'm representing my community that has seen a lot of gun violence. A lot.
Yeah, I'll just jump in here as well. I agree with everything that Ms. Purcell shared on that. You know, I think that, you know, I would probably feel differently. Again, I made the comment earlier, if there are alternatives for us to pursue, we still got $700K we got to account for, right? So this is a big swing. If there wasn't a retirement of the chief of police, if there wasn't a bunch of town council positions up for election this year, and it was kind of status quo, I'd feel more strongly about this, because I'm not sure we'd have another option. I think there's another option here for us to pursue, and I think our folks on the Blacksburg Town Council liaison, as I'm sure you will need to carry that message. You know, the superintendent carrying his message. You know, we need to lean on them. When I was at the Margaret Beeks PTO meeting and they were advocating about this, they were ready to march on this, but they weren't marching to our office. They were ready to march down to Blacksburg office. Like, they know that that's where the issue is. This is a bit of a Band-Aid in order to fix a problem that Blacksburg is having. And I'm definitely concerned about the slippery slope, right? I think the county is seeing it with volunteer firefighters right now, right? You know, you change how that works, and all of a sudden folks want to do this other way, right? So we start off with a few of these folks, and then what happens when other SROs in the county retire or don't want to do it anymore, then all of a sudden we're increasing this budget, and it becomes a whole nother department within our, it gets really complicated. So if I were sitting here next year, which I won't be, thanks, and this problem wasn't solved, I would want to see it on the budget again, because we got to do something. Like, I don't know how long this issue has been going on. It wasn't just a this year issue, right? It's been happening for a while. So I appreciate Dr. Bragan bringing this to us as an option to correct an issue that needs to be addressed. But I think there's other avenues that I think we should explore first.
Okay, and I get the change of town council members and possibly mayor and possibly the chief of police, but that is not going to change people who are going to be and need to be SROs. The change of command is not going to bring more people coming to you that either want to do it or have the experience to do it. So with that being said, I wouldn't want to take a chance on any time in between when all I've heard from the community, especially Blacksburg, because they're the ones that are yelling because they don't have anyone in their schools. I would rather be able to put someone in there temporarily until an SRO could be found or would be trained than not to have anyone. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Bragan, but I thought you were all for this program, and I thought that they did this up in New Jersey, and I thought that there was talk around the school safety meetings that SSOs would be a good thing here, and you would like to see that implemented.
I am in support of that, and that was included in the budget we presented, because I do believe it is a stopgap. I think Ms. Purcell quoted what I did say. In an ideal world, an SRO is better than a retired school security officer. I do believe that an SRO is the best option. Right now, what I was told by our law enforcement is that that's not an option right now because we don't have the people. So this was something that we came up together with law enforcement as a stopgap, and that's what we put forth.
I just want to add, an ancillary issue with security that the SSO would not address. And one of the things that we've talked about is speeding around our schools. And there was just a fatality downtown Blacksburg within the last 2 weeks. And it is a problem at Gilbert Lincoln, certainly, and at Harding. And when there's an SRO standing on the corner, visible, it has an impact. So for me, that is part of security. And I don't want the message at all to be that I'm not concerned about security. That's not at all what I want to take away from this conversation. We need SROs, we need Blacksburg Police to provide that service, that security for our community.
Yeah, I'll second that. And I sometimes lean a little on the political and the other members of our community that are serving in government. So next time that Margaret Beek is ready to march. Actually, tomorrow, Margaret Beeks, Harding, Gilbert Lincoln, Kips, march. So it's not true that we don't have any SROs. We have one SRO that floats between Gilbert Lincoln, Margaret Beeks, Harding, and Kips, correct? Okay. Kips is also right next to the two, Blacksburg Middle and Blacksburg High, so we have coverage there. There's emergency cases that could come over. But y'all, we need the community to get out and talk to these town councilmen and mayors that are running for election. If they're not going to get SROs in our schools, don't vote for them.
I think it's like Ms. Parton said, even if they want to do it, if the officer's not trained to be an SRO, they can't do that unless they bring them in or offer them more to get another jurisdiction's SROs to come in. I'm not sure, but I mean, I'm looking, and I am a huge dual language program is $250,000, and I am an advocate for that. I wanted it. I think it would be great. But at the cost of not having security officers, it's almost a flip there. To me, I don't understand why that would even be for one school. We're looking at doing this basically for one school against the protection of how many schools in Blacksburg. So, you know, I don't understand how we can even have this conversation at this point. Dual languages would be a great program, and I would love to see it in a year that we can afford it, but we can't. And I'm going to skip on into, and nobody please hatchet me or think terrible of me, but I'm going to move on to the teacher salary scale, and you know, that's $1 billion, and I can't support 15 years. I understand the teacher retention, I truly do, but I think we do a lot of what we can do for our staff. We give raises, we give time off, we give bonuses when we can. We try to do the raises, and I am all for the raises, and I've not one time ever voted against any of our staff getting a raise, not one time in my years. But I don't know of any other profession that has a topping cap at 15 years. I don't know of anybody, and with no disrespect, I feel like that's just not enough. 15 years is... At 15 years, I still was wondering what I was going to do when I grew up. I mean, you know, I don't, and I understand that's something that we need, but I don't think we can compare anything in professions here to what Northern Virginia does or what cities do. I don't even think, I mean, I could go to Northern Virginia and make a bunch more than what I'm going to make here in Montgomery County, but you're going to pay out also for the cost of living. So I am all about making a allowance, maybe not 20, because I don't think there's that much difference, but 25, which would cut 10 years off of the top. It would give that leeway, but I just think that's a fairer number than 15 or 20. Just my thoughts on that, and along with the dual language program, like I said, I would be willing to put that on hold until another budget year that we have some more money, and I know we do that lots, but I do think school security officers program is what if you've got to pick one or the other.
Could I make a quick request? I'm not sure if you can do this on the fly. Can you highlight the items up there that we added on top of what was already presented? I know the breakfast lunch was one of them, but, because honestly, I've kind of forgotten. Thanks.
About the dual language program, I think it's valuable. At the same time, given the constraints, I don't know that we can do everything this year. We can't do everything this year. So I would be comfortable putting that off a year. I still feel the same way about the SSO program. I think when it comes to compression, yeah, if we can't do 15, 20, we need to keep good people. We just have to. I think, some of I listened closely to the conversation of the Board of Supervisors, and I'm grateful that they increased by the 1 cent. But when it came to paying our employees, I was a little disappointed in a couple of ways. One was there was pushback on compression and dealing with compression. And in the middle of that conversation, there was a comment, well, we did it a few years ago. And I was thinking to myself, well, if you did it for the county, why shouldn't we now do it for the school division? Obviously, there are more employees. So for me, this is a priority. We need to retain and recruit good people, and this is how we do it. Another thing that disappointed me, we were talking about the minimum wage. I don't think this board member meant what he said when he said he didn't want to see it increase to $16 because we'd be competing with the county, and people would want to leave the county and work for MCPS. And I just thought to myself, what are you telling MCPS employees? You want to suppress their wages so that you don't have to compete with your own people in the county? I can't imagine that board member realized in that moment the message he was sending to this community. So I'm committed to that $16 an hour today.
Just for reference, on that $16, the county's minimum wage is $16.40. So we're not even competitive with the county.
I wouldn't want to lose that at all. We definitely, that's not one that I would want an option to take off. The salary increase for the $16 an hour.
Yeah, but the attitude of the Board of Supervisor member that was saying they don't want to give us increases to our people's salaries because they don't want us competing against them when they're not even taking our people to the level of the county.
Right.
You had said, and I mean, this was, you wanted us to be the same salary for the county and the school board.
Well, I said we could, as long as we could be equitable. I mean, we were 12 opposed to 15. So I was saying closing the gap, that I thought that that's what all of us needed to work toward doing. I understand it might not be exactly 1640 or it might not be 1625, but
Right.
it's very comparable.
Right.
Opposed to $12 an hour and 16, where you've got this one going here and that one going back over here. And let's try to halt some of that. That's kind of where I was going with that. It may not be pennies to pennies, but
Yeah, the exact number is not so
right,
big, but
right. But no,
the
I support that
statement-
100%.
right.
Not to take off. Absolutely, you're correct.
And the salary adjustment scales for the county are done constantly. So they constantly compress their scales as they add money to the budgets for their scales, which is why they don't have 35 years worth of salary scale, sorry, just blanking.
I think this is kind of, general conversation is good, so we can kind of get a few different things in the mix here to react to. Any other comments, Ms. Purcell? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Laura. Okay. So I don't know about the rest of the county employees, and I don't know if the law enforcement agencies are done differently, but I can assure you that theirs are at least 20 or 25. And I'm pretty sure most of the counties is that as well.
If Anna Drew getting honored by the Milken Foundation was any indication that we have world-class teachers at MCPS, and we need to keep them, and we want more to come here, supporting salaries and positions is my number one priority with this budget. When I told my daughter what I was going to do that day, or what I had done when I came home, after we went out to Shawsville for that ceremony, she said, "My teacher deserves that." And I can't give everybody $25,000, but we can do a little bit. And if the 20 years is the one that we have the figure for, that seems a little more manageable than 15, I'll do what I can as far as the consolidation or condensation, however we say it.
I'll kind of throw that consideration here. Again, for me, my eyes is just drawn to the bigger numbers, right? To see if there's any space in there. So I'm certainly want to protect as many of the new positions that we have listed up there. Yeah, again, I was in BHS as the one nurse was struggling to deal with a bunch of issues on one day, and that was just a random day in their life. So, I know we need to increase the nurses in our bigger schools, our custodians. We know we have cleaning issues. The 504 coordinators, we know we got to do something there. The one that's drawing my eye is the special education teachers one, for two reasons. One, I know that we haven't been able to fill the positions we currently have, if I'm not mistaken, right? We have open positions right there. But also I remember in the report that we all reviewed that, like, one of the findings in there, if I'm not going to quote this correctly, but I thought there was something about maybe we don't necessarily need more staff, we need to be more efficient in the uses of the staff we do have, right? So, I don't know, I mean, 800K is it's a big number, right? So I don't know if that might be a place where we maybe look to trim a little bit and try to be more efficient in those. I'm not sure. Just kind of throwing out another item for consideration.
Ask a question along those lines of the superintendent. So I know that the reason that you explained yesterday for adding the 10 was to move away from the strict inclusion model that we have now. Is it absolutely essential to have 10 special ed teachers in order to implement that this coming year?
I don't think I'd be a good superintendent if I didn't say, I'll make whatever you give me work, because I will, right? And I think when you look at the proposal, we put 10 in there. In an ideal world, that's something that we want to aspire to and try to make happen and make come to fruition, because I do think that'll help us provide the services. If the board came back and said, well, listen, Bernie, you can't fill, you got 5 open vacancies now, you're going to put 10, it's going to be 15, and that's going to compromise something else, and said, you only have 5 of those positions moving forward, I will make that work and make sure we do what we need to do. One of the things that came out of, as the board chair was alluding to, of the report was, we overuse our paraprofessionals to the detriment of some of our children in taking away from the full inclusion model to which we aspire, because we're making them more disabled than they need to be and putting them in a general ed setting where they're not really interacting and doing what we want them to do. So reducing some of those positions would also free up some funds for some of those teaching positions, if I answered that correctly.
Yeah, thank you. I am a big proponent for special ed teachers. One would hope is that if you did create these, they were called labs before, what are they called now? What's the new term that you're using?
We do have some academic and learning labs, but, one of the recommendations was to call those positions what they are, which is resource centers.
Resource centers that may alleviate some of the pressure on the other special ed teachers. I think given the fact that it's been difficult, and I know the Board of Supervisors brought this up, then maybe a little bit of wiggle room there might help us some. Looking at the additional personnel while we're on this, I think that my priority overall when I was thinking about the budget is to recuperate losses and get us in the right direction. I know that we want to add some things. So for instance, I know that we lost the administrator for fine arts, so that's a position I want to see restored. I like to see restoration of positions that have been lost. And so I have the question about the special ed teachers, but these other make a whole lot of sense to me, these additions.
Is there a suggestion on what to do with that line item?
I don't know if we need to go down to 5, you mean for special ed. I don't know how much of a difference would it make if, say, we went down to 7. It's hard to know how much more, did we get a consensus? Maybe we should get a consensus on the dual language.
Yeah, we've kind of thrown a bunch of different ideas out there, which is great. I think kind of the free flow here is good. At some point, we need to circle back to some actual recommendations and see what the will of the board is. It would be good to know, the Excel whiz going on over here, how much that is per position. I guess I can divide by 10 pretty effectively, but just so we have something to work with. But yeah. Are there any other topics, any other areas? We've kind of covered a bunch of different areas. Are any other ones on here that anybody wants to speak to before we try to hone in on anything in particular?
Can we get some more clarification on the reduction of classroom teachers? I'm just a little concerned about classroom sizes getting large. Again, my daughter's in a science class with 30 kids. It's a big class, and we're having some bigger elementary classrooms. And if we want good learning outcomes, a healthy student-teacher ratio is part of that.
That reduction of 4 is elementary positions, and that won't increase class size at all. That would just be to keep it at the status quo, what it is now, if not even a little lower. That's declining enrollments across the elementary schools. So that's not going to increase class size anywhere, those 4 positions. Now, if we didn't reduce that, and you're saying, do you want to add then teachers to the middle school or high school to reduce some of those classes, that's a different conversation.
Does the dual language program include 2 teachers?
We have those positions accounted for.
With the cost, so that $280,000, what is that cost?
Would be including of the teachers, correct.
So if we got rid of the dual language program, we would have to add 2 teachers in.
No. You might have to add 1 teacher in, because it would be an additional kindergarten class. Currently, there's 3 there now. Is that correct, Dr. Wickham? 3 kindergarten classes at Price's Fork Elementary School. We would make sure there's 4, but we want to hire the people that are also fluent in Spanish and English, which we currently don't have.
Okay. So if we got
So if you got rid of the
got
dual
rid of it,
language
we'd still have to
program,
add a teacher that would be about an $80,000, or sorry, $90,000 cost.
thereabouts, yep.
So the dual language program will only take away 100 and, let's see, dual language, no, $140,000. Sorry, $160,000.
160,000, yeah.
160. It's late, I can't do math at this time of night.
I don't want this comment to be construed in any way that I'm not in support of the dual language immersion program, because I love it and I would love to see it in our schools. But it's not just $250,000 this year, it's a commitment over, scaling it up through 5th grade that would be about $1.6 million or something when it's all said and done.
I don't know if it'd be that exact amount every year moving forward, but we would require to have, the 2 teachers, if we stick to that one building, that are bilingual in 1st grade, and then 2nd grade, then 3rd grade, all the way up through 5th grade.
So that's the only thing that's making me pump the brakes on it, just because there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and I don't know if that's a commitment to make this year. And I hate to have to say it.
Can I ask a question? Is it possible to see where we are if we do really reduce special ed to 7 and wait on and do the 20-step for salary compression, and we've already removed lunch? How close are we with these changes?
Can I ask a question real quick too, on the scale? Does that include the VRS contributions as well? Okay.
So right now, the SSO program and the dual language are still in there.
Yeah, we haven't really given direction on those yet.
Yeah. I'm just wondering how close we actually are to getting under.
If we took out those 2, we'd be there.
So he's already taken from that surplus deficit, those 2 programs?
No, if you took out those 2 programs are, yeah. But you,
Yeah, I just wanted to see how close we were to getting to that.
To see where we are. Does anyone want to entertain a recommendation and see if we have a consensus on anything?
I would recommend that we do 25-year step and keep the school security office program and not do the dual language.
Do we know what the 25-step number is?
That way we're getting both, because the 20 steps really not that big of a savings. And again, we need security officers.
They didn't put together an estimate for 25 steps?
Yeah, I'd say a rough estimate would be another maybe 25K for each. It might, if you went from 20 steps to 25 for the compression, just off the top of my head, just educated guess, I would say about 25,000 for each, for the teacher scales and the other salary scales. Yeah.
Well,
That's conservative, right?
yeah.
So we wouldn't be over.
Let's maybe do our consensus one item at a time, just to kind of help makes this a little bit easier. So do we want to start with the 25 steps? Yeah.
That made a considerable amount of difference and still offering something as well.
So is that, y'all feel comfortable with that? The 25?
We're looking for a show of hands on that, or?
Yeah, I just want to get all the questions answered, and then we'll do a show of hands, yeah. And the current steps is 30, 35, 30?
It depends on the scale, but for teachers, it's 35 steps.
Still saving 10 years? 36. 36, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Show of hands on 25 steps, then. Oh, sorry, is there further discussion?
I'm having a difficult time just translating to the meaningfulness of going from the 20 to 25. I see the overall, what does it mean for employees?
Means that it requires them 25 years to get to the highest.
Yeah.
But it's 36 now.
No, right, I understand that. So is the consensus over there as well for 25? Okay, this one, okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is just, we're going to try each one as we get them, right? If 25 doesn't pass, then we'll try something else. I mean, is there any more discussion on 25? Okay. A show of hands with 25. Sorry, Jamie. I know you raised your hand 5 times down there. Okay. All right, so that one didn't work.
So I suggest 20. In that case, I suggest 15. Is this 15 or 20?
It's 20.
Oh, okay. I suggested 15. Because I was told 20 didn't matter, make enough difference.
One was only 55,000 and one was only something, I mean,
Yeah, put 15 up there.
I think my preference is for the 15, if we can do it by holding off on the additional program considerations.
Okay, well then, yeah, so I guess like just to help us out, maybe let's make recommendations for things we want to reduce so we can kind of see how the number's going down. So where else do you want to consider a reduction?
We didn't get hands on 15. Did you want hands on 15? Or do we have 4 for it?
I mean, I guess at that point, well, yeah. I mean, I guess at that point, we'd be making hands to not change it.
I mean, it was in the middle of a discussion, yeah. But
right.
are we good with not changing that? That's the question, okay. Yeah, so do we want to look at the school security officers? What kind of, I thought we already did a hand gesture on that.
We did do a show of hands on that. We
did?
discussed it, but
Okay.
then we just kind of went off to another thing, so somebody make a recommendation.
Remove the school security officers and press on Blacksburg to provide us school resource officers.
Okay. Any more discussion on that one?
I'm just going to make a comment. I don't understand how we're so worried about kids getting meals, but we're not worried about their safety. I have a problem with that. One hand goes with the other. How can you be that concerned about one and not be as concerned about the other?
Absolutely concerned about both. Blacksburg is supposed to provide us these officers.
But they're not.
But they're not. They're not doing their job.
Okay, but we can't change that. We can change this.
We can change
And
it.
we can fix this. We can make a difference, and we're not.
There's lots of ways that we can make differences.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
I think if we step in and pay for this, it will open a door to have more and have a supervisor of safety and lose an SRO program. And I'm just not ready to open that door.
It is not not going to...
It's a very slippery slope. We do it for one town, and then the other town's going to come, and then the county's going to come and say, we can't find SROs. Y'all got to provide SSOs for all 20 schools.
We already have SROs. My husband has them in all the county schools. Okay?
I know.
Okay, so SSOs are not taking the place of SROs. They're until we can get SROs into the schools.
But you're telling me that we can't get SROs, ever.
Not at this point right now. I'm saying it takes a year of training, and it takes the right person, as Ms. Purcell had adhered to, but I'm telling you,
In
I'd
Christiansburg-
rather have somebody in the school than no one.
I would rather have somebody too. Christiansburg,
so-
and there's no guarantee we can get SSOs. We haven't advertised positions. We don't know if we can get them.
You heard what the presentation said, or do we need to go back and watch it again? That is providing retired law enforcement officers, retired military, retired people with experience that know what they're doing for jobs, and both Chief Ramsey and Sheriff Parton both stated that they would know for a fact that that would be a after-retirement job that they see many being interested in. That is not going to be a problem.
So how do the county and the city of Christiansburg currently identify SROs and get those people to provide services to our schools, but Blacksburg can't?
Good question. That's for your town. Hank is the sheriff of Montgomery County. He is only...
I know, I voted for him.
He is only, thank you for
I'm in
that.
the county.
Thank you. But that has been a top priority for him and myself ever since he started 3 terms ago. And he vowed when he started that he was going to have an SRO in every county school. But because the towns have the jurisdiction in the town, then we have also heard from people saying that they could be provided an SRO from the county, but their police officers in the town have become, who have been in the schools, have become close to the kids, they've developed relationships, and they want to try to continue to provide the SROs or some type of security in that particular town where the children have made a relationship with. Because it's more than just safety. It's being there for the kids to talk to, it's mentorship. They do just about everything. If they don't want to go to a teacher, they go to an SRO. If they don't want to go to the principal and tell them what's going on, they go to an SRO. So I just can't imagine with, here again, the events that just happened and what has already happened and what could very easily and tomorrow could possibly happen, that anyone would even consider thinking that they're going to wait to see what a town is going to do when there's no guarantee they're going to. Why do you want to take that risk?
Can I say something? 2 things. One thing that we learned from the Board of Supervisors meeting is that we were lucky to get 1 cent. Are we going to get 2 cents next year? 3 cents next year? We have to be mindful of starting a program that we want to scale up that will be a considerable cost to the county, because they made it very clear, like they would go 1 cent, but we can't count on that. And this is, I'm not trying to take away at all your concerns. I have your concerns about security. I'm not taking it away at all. The town of Blacksburg needs to provide security, period.
But we could use that argument on the same thing. Every teacher that we add, they'll be capping out at 15 years. And that's going to be an extra expense, and it will continue to heighten. And to me, I don't understand why we don't give a little so we can have all of what we're trying to obtain, maybe in a smaller package, but, making allowances, giving and taking. I thought that's what we did as a board, and that's not what we're doing.
Well, we do, but hiring, retaining teachers, staff
is central to what we do. Providing security in the town of Blacksburg is a responsibility of the police force. We have different responsibilities in this community. So this, the way that we're allocating money, if I'm looking at this budget, this is central to our mission. This is central to what we are tasked to do. And I'm not saying that we should ignore security, but the Board of Supervisors, did they say, we're going to raise 3 cents so you can have security officers, SSOs in your schools? Did they clamor for that?
No, because the
No,
decision
so they didn't, they're not going to give us the money for it. They weren't asking for us to, they weren't going to increase the budget for us to get the SSOs. So what are we supposed to do?
I don't believe the SSOs was part of the tax increase, was it?
Exactly.
So that was never
If
brought
they,
up.
but no, they saw our whole budget. They told us what they didn't want us to spend money on, and they could have said, we're going to increase it by 1 cent so that you can get your SSOs. That was never presented. That was never
Did you not see
discussed.
the Board of Supervisors meeting where they all agreed there should be SSOs
Yeah.
in all of the school, and every single one of them voted for that?
But at the budget meeting yesterday?
No, I'm
No,
saying.
that's where the rubber hits the road.
But
They
Ed-
could say, oh, we all want it, but when it comes to allocating the funding, they did not do it. They did not say, we want to
That's
increase
not the-
taxes by
that's
3
not the
cents.
county's- That's not
For
the
that matter,
county's job.
In their budget, they put the entire nutrition program for lunch and breakfast, which they don't get to dictate where we spend our money. But if you're talking about what they did, what they didn't do, that was one thing they did. We're not going to do that because we need these other things.
And just another comment on the 15 steps, that's a 21-step change. 21 steps. That's my argument to that. I just don't know that I think that's a fair movement in that direction. I'm all for increasing it, or decreasing it, but 21 steps at one time?
That's what happens when you let stuff pile up.
Okay, so let's try to get some direction going here. So I think I heard, if I'm not mistaken, a recommendation to drop the SSO program. Is that before that discussion? Okay. So let's have a show of hands on that. And as I said, there's other options to pursue on that. And if we don't get any traction with a new police chief and new mayor and other stuff, that thing is right back here next year.
Don't wait for them.
Right.
Start now.
Right.
The people that are out there listening, start tomorrow. Start tonight. Posting, getting those town council members to take this seriously. They need to provide us SROs. If they have to provide more money, that's how they have to do it.
Correct. All right, what else? We still got $165,000. No, I mean, it was in discussions. We haven't done an official. Okay, yeah, let's discuss about that one next. So there's a recommendation to drop that one. Any other discussion about that one?
Yeah, so it'll knock it down to 90, not 0, just for reference. It doesn't
Right.
quite get us where we need to be.
That's right. Okay.
I love the idea of the program. I don't think we can't do everything this year, and I think we just put it on hold for another year. That's,
Can we do it for one class?
I don't think that'd be wise, and what we saw when we visited other schools is there's natural attrition as kids mature through the program. You don't want to be stuck with 3rd and 4th grade, 6 kids. That's why they say you definitely have to have at least 2 classes as a minimum. Right, because once you enter into that program, you don't want someone that is in 3rd grade or 4th grade when we have a handful of children that we can no longer sustain it, that then they go back in traditional setting. That's not fair to them.
What's the chance that we could pull it off with 3 kindergarten classes, one all English and 2 dual language.
I don't think that'll work. I don't think we have more kindergarten kids than that. That price is for.
You said we only had
We have 3
classes.
now. If we add this class, we'll have more kids in that section. We need the 4. So you're saying if we did the 2 and the 1, I think the classes will be too big to be successful.
Any more discussion on that one? Show of hands of removing the dual language program. And so that, yeah, and then you got to add in, so explain to everyone, including myself, why we need that teacher.
For the numbers of kindergarten and Prices Fork Elementary projected for next year. We have 3 now, we won 4. So that was included in the dual language program because there was going to be 4 classes, 2 of those would be bilingual.
So maybe the more accurate place to put it would be reduction of classroom teachers to 3, right?
Correct. Change that to 27.
Now, I do want to be clear, though, because I'm not sure we really voted on this, but if you'll scroll up, you reduced that already in the total. So we discussed that, but we didn't really take action on that. We're about $5,000 away from being good here. Do we want to accept that change, or do we want to consider something else? Can you put that total back for us, just so we see what the gap is if we don't touch the spec ed teachers? Could you doing some Excel shenanigans over there? Okay, so if we don't touch those positions, we still got 250. If we trim them to 7, that gets us almost there. Are there any other? What's our next recommendation?
Reduced to 7 positions.
How do you feel about reducing to 7? How do you feel about reducing from 10 to 7 for the special ed teachers?
Okay, so do we have a consensus on the 7? Show of hands. So y'all just going to take the ball and go home now?
I'm abstaining.
We didn't get a consensus on that one.
I'm really struggling between positions and free meals. Free meal, because we still have free breakfast on there. It's just hard. What's the best for the kids?
Could we get some guidance from the administration on the special ed versus the free breakfast? Anybody want to weigh in? Because that, one or the other gets us very close to where we need to be.
putting me in a position to go against somebody on the board. You know, the statement of superintendent needs is what I put forward in January, is what I personally, with the feedback from our staff, felt we needed to do to make sure we met all our students' needs moving forward. And I didn't have free breakfast or lunch included in that.
Very careful statement there, sir. So what's our gap now? 215.
What is it for the breakfast, free breakfast?
270.
Okay.
That's the gap right there.
I'll just say that one of the reasons why I suggested 7 versus 10 is because we didn't fill the positions that we had allocated. If I thought that we could fill the existing openings that we have, because how many unfilled positions do we have at this point? Are you able to speak to that? I know that I'm putting you on the spot.
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I want to say 4 or 5.
So that's 14. And how many, do you know how many we were able to hire this year? Yeah. 6. Yeah.
We're also making some changes to make it attractive to be in Montgomery County.
Yeah, my take is that the, providing that first meal of the day to students that may be falling through the cracks is going to increase their educational potential and decrease disciplinary problems in our schools. The fact that we haven't been able to fill those slots is a big item. We have 4 open, 6 haven't filled. If we take away 3 from this, we're still looking at filling 11 slots currently. It's, so.
One of the things, again, I don't have the specifics in front of me, and those numbers, as you all know, working with children with special needs is sometimes fluid, right? Their IEP needs, and those aren't always etched in stone year to year, and we don't know children that would move into the district or move out for that matter. But if we do have options to provide more services in a setting that's outside the general ed setting, without looking at anything, we would probably need less one-to-one paraprofessionals. And that was the recommendation for the outside audit we had as well. So if this board made a determination that in lieu of not compromising on giving the free breakfast, we would reduce that to 7, I'm confident that we could make that work.
So Dr. Bregan, are you saying 7 special education teachers instead of 7.5 paras, 7 paras, and does that make the number work?
No, I wasn't saying I would leave the paras there, and just through attrition and what we would need when we changed the program needs for some of the students in the middle schools, that would free up the paras. I didn't say take those off of there, but it's probably the same thing. It's a wash, right, is what you're saying. It's the same thing. If you keep the teachers the same or get rid of the paras, is what I just said, I believe, right? You just kind of codified it with what we have on the list there. So
You want to take a recommendation? Try one, see what you get. Guess it needs to be. What's something that four folks will agree on here? Changing the 15 steps to 20, but that doesn't solve it, does it?
The savings would be about 90,000.
How much? 100,000?
90,000.
90,000?
What if we did 20 steps and
Two.
did not reduce the special ed as to 7, but to 8 or 9, just to fill the gap?
Try 20 on steps and reduce special ed down to 8. Yeah. Ooh. Ding, ding, ding.
I'm good with that.
I think I just had that conversation 15 minutes ago.
It was less than that. But you all wouldn't hear of it then.
Nope.
No, you didn't.
20 steps and 8 special eds. Okay. We have a show of hands to accept that. Okay. Anything else anybody wants to consider? We're in the green.
Can we dump all the green into the minimum wage to get it closer to 1640?
Sure you got that math, right? Just yeah, right.
It's closer.
Yeah, I think that's the best guidance we'll have for you tonight.
Can I ask one question? There was another comment yesterday at the Board of Supervisors meeting about our budget process. And there was a board member who said that you had presented your statement of needs and that your needs were being met. It's my understanding that we are constrained as a board in that we needed to get the numbers from the state, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to make that clear. And when we had our joint meeting, we talked about a time frame for making decisions. Did we stay within that time frame?
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to make it clear because there seemed to be an insinuation there that it was fine to meet your budget request, but it almost seemed like what we wanted was irrelevant because as long as we were meeting your needs, then that was good enough.
Yeah, it was comments that were made after I was already seated, so I couldn't really weigh in. But, I mean, if you ask me, whatever Bernie Bragan feels or doesn't feel is irrelevant, it's what the school board approves that we move forward to the other governing body that matters.
Okay.
So there was a discussion there that I don't know that it portrayed exactly what you're saying. And there were two things in the first statement of superintendent's needs. That's just what it's called. It's not my needs. It's what, we work with the team and figure out what we need for the budget for the next fiscal year. But we didn't have all the state aid numbers then at that point. And it's also up for discussion for the school board. I mean, you all play a key role in this. So, yeah, I didn't get it. It wasn't a question that was asked when I was at the table to discuss it, so I couldn't really respond.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make that clear because my recollection of that joint board's meeting was that we had come to an agreement on the schedule for these budget deliberations and that we met that schedule. And so I think it's important to know that, when they were working on their budget, we needed to get the state figures, and then when we had them, we started working with them. So I just wanted to make sure that that point was clear. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, moving through the agenda, our upcoming school board meetings, we have our school board retreat this weekend. Our next regular meeting is on May 6th. And with that, I adjourn this meeting at 8:55 PM.